What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. Hey, thanks for clicking on this video. Today, I'm going to be going over with you guys 13 really interesting games that are going to be taking place in week 2 of the college football season. Got a couple games on tonight. I believe Louisville, UCF, and Boise State and New Mexico, I believe, are the 2 games on tonight. So go give those a good watch. I'll do a recap on my community channel for those games. But I'm going to here talk 13 games that we're going to see on Saturday that are going to be some either really interesting games or really important games for these teams down the stretch. So 13 games coming at you. But before we get into that, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, do anything like that to help support the channel. The support recently has been amazing. I really thank you guys for that. So continue to like, comment, subscribe. Anything like that does help support my channel. And even watching this video helps to support my channel as well. So I appreciate you clicking on. Let's go ahead and dive into predictions. You guys know that I like to give the Group of 5 some love, right? Well, let's start out with a huge Group of 5 matchup. The UTSA Roadrunners and the Army Black Knights each dropped their opening game of the season. UTSA in that triple overtime thriller against Houston, and Army against a really good team out of the Sun Belt in Coastal Carolina. One of these teams is going to drop to 0-2. What do these teams have to do to avoid that? Well, Army showed offensive balance in their game against Coastal Carolina. They threw for over 100 yards in that game, which for Army is offensive balance, not a team that throws the football a lot. But it's a secondary in UTSA that had some good moments, but overall kind of struggled against this Houston passing attack last week. So Army, if they want to be able to come in, have a really good shot at this game, of course UTSA is going to be well prepared for the run game. That's just what Army is. Army is a run-first football team. But if Army can throw some trickery in there and really spread things out with the pass, Army's got a good shot to win the game. But speaking of mixing some things up, this UTSA team is still really balanced on offense with Frank Harris, now Traylon Smith, some other running backs back there as well. Zachary Franklin at the wide receiver position. UTSA is still really, really good on the offensive end, and they did some really nice things against Houston. They're going to look to try to continue improving on that their offensive game this week against Army. And again, they can spread the field. Now, this is an Army defense that has a lot of good talent on it, including that linebacker, whose name I believe is Andre Carter, but the name is escaping me right now. But believe it's Andre Carter, and he is spectacular, right? And he's going to be a big reason why Army's going to have a shot. And speaking of defense, the Roadrunners defense needs to show up on third down. Did not have a great showing against Houston last week, and Army's going to try to take advantage of that in this game. UTSA is the 3.5-point favorite, as all lines and odds are as of recording this video. And I'm going to take that 3 points. That's what I think UTSA is going to win by. This is the noon game on the CBS Sports Network. I got the UTSA Roadrunners winning 27-24 here in this game. I think their offense is going to do just enough, and I do expect that defense to improve from last week to get the Roadrunners the win. And Army, unfortunately, I have dropping to 0-2. South Carolina and Arkansas are kicking off their SEC play in a really interesting matchup. Now, there is a reason that Spencer Rattler was benched for Caleb Williams last year. He just did not impress last season, and he didn't necessarily impress in the game against Georgia State either. There's still a lot of things that Spencer Rattler needs to do to improve his game. And this is a great opportunity for him to do so. While normally the Arkansas secondary is pretty darn good, they're going to be a little hobbled in this game. They had a couple players go out against Cincinnati last week, a game that Arkansas was able to win, but they still have some talent that is some really good talent on that defensive backside of things that may not play in this game, which is huge for South Carolina, huge for Spencer Rattler. That's a passing attack that has weapons. Rattler's got to use them. The Gamecock defense is also going to need to step it up, especially in the run game, as Georgia State was really able to just bully the South Carolina team. In fact, Georgia State's offense outgained South Carolina's offense last week. This is a South Carolina team that's got to make some improvements, especially in the run game. Dominique Johnson is still questionable for Arkansas, but Raheem Sanders and even KJ Jefferson can run the football on this team. And speaking of KJ Jefferson, he's going to be the big difference maker in this game. Arkansas is the 8.5-point favorite. I'm going to hammer Arkansas on that. I just don't think South Carolina has what it takes to beat a team like Arkansas, and with the way that these two teams played last week, I do expect improvement from the South Carolina team. There's no question about that. I think Spencer Rattler, is going to have a better game. I think the defense is going to play better, and I think South Carolina, I could see this being a 4-quarter game. But I think with what Arkansas is doing, with KJ Jefferson, with all those transfers of wide receiver that looked really good, and even without Dominique Johnson, with how good that run game looked against Cincinnati, especially the physicality of that defense, and Georgia State's defense was questionable at best. Yeah, South Carolina, Spencer Rattler are going to have a bigger and tougher time with this Razorbacks defense than they did last week against the Georgia State Panthers. So overall, I think KJ Jefferson, the big difference maker, and the Hogs defense really steps up. Got the Hogs winning this one by 11. This is the noon game on ESPN. I think Arkansas scores a touchdown late to kind of pull away from this one. I could see South Carolina keeping this one closer than a lot of people expect, but I got Arkansas pulling away late and pulling away with a double-digit win to get their first win in conference play. The Alabama Crimson Tide and Texas Longhorns are going to be facing College Game Day is going to be facing off. College Game Day is going to be here, and for the number 1 team in the country, they flat out dominated Utah State last week. And Quinn Ewers, well, this is going to be his first big test, and after he threw, I believe, an interception on his second pass attempt of his entire career, he never looked back, and he really got going and looked pretty good for this Texas team, albeit they played University of Louisiana Monroe last weekend. But Quinn Ewers looked fairly solid for this Texas team. However, this is a much different beast. Going from ULM to Bama is probably one of the biggest jumps you're going to see in college football. I mean, it's just a different animal to prepare for. Bama's got so many great pass rushers in that defensive front. And Quinn Ewers is really going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and these wide receivers are going to have to break some coverage here as well. And speaking of the Tide's pass rush, I mean, it's probably the best pass rush in the entire nation, and one of the best pass rushes I've ever seen in college football. And the Longhorns offensive line is suspect. The Longhorns offensive line has some injuries on it and is going to be playing a couple of true or redshirt freshmen in this game against Alabama. And that just doesn't bode well for Texas. That just does not bode well for the Longhorns at all. And especially so, the Longhorns running backs are going to have to be really, really good in pass protection there as well. And the Longhorns are going to find ways to get the ball in the hands of Bijan Robinson. He's just that dynamic of a player. But he's not great in pass protection. Roschon Johnson, who has been dealing with some injuries, is Texas's best pass protection running back. And who knows if he's going to be able to play here in this game. Again, I haven't seen anything telling me that he definitely is. Also, I haven't seen anything telling me he definitely isn't. We'll have to wait and see. 20.5 points is that line. Bama can win this one by 30. I think Texas keeps the game closer than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people are saying Bama by 30. Oh, Bama by 40. Things like that. And while it definitely couldn't get out of hand, and I can see it, I think Texas is going to be able to compete here. And I especially think that Texas defense will step up, make some improvements, but I don't expect Texas to win this game. In fact, I don't expect it to be particularly close. Maybe Texas catches up towards the end. Maybe this is a 21-point game that feels like a 40-point loss for Texas. It's going to be a really rough game for Longhorn fans, in my opinion. This is the big noon kickoff game on Fox. College Game Day is going to be there. Big noon kickoff is going to be there. But plain and simple, this Alabama offense is too dynamic, and this pass rush is too good. They're going to beat Texas by 20-plus points. I got them winning by 21. The Washington State Cougars and Wisconsin Badgers are playing an interesting matchup here in Week 2. Both teams enter 1-0 and looking to gain some momentum for the rest of the season. Now, we all know what these offenses look like, right? Washington State is an air raid style offense, even without Mike Leach there, as they bring in Cameron Ward from the FCS. And the Badgers, well, they are all about running the football. And Braylon Allen wasn't super impressive in the game against Illinois State, but didn't have to be because it's Illinois State, right? And the Badger defense shut out that team in the FCS there as well. Washington State had some troubles with Idaho, another FCS opponent, last week. Again, we know what these offenses are. Run game over here, pass game over here. The defensive pass rush. Both of these teams are really good at getting pressure on the quarterback and getting into the backfield. Who's going to get more pressure here in this game? Who is going to provide more pressure to this quarterback. And speaking of quarterbacks, watch for this quarterback battle because Graham Mertz, while I still don't think he is that great of a quarterback, he looked a lot better. He looked a lot better in that game against Illinois State, and he was pretty efficient in that game. Does that continue in this game? This is definitely going to be a much tougher task for Graham Mertz and for this Wisconsin team than last week was. And they're the 17.5-point favorite, which I think is entirely too high. Again, you guys know my thoughts on the Badgers. I don't think this is the top 25 team yet. However, that defense looked good last week. I think it continues to look good this week. I think Washington State has some good moments in this game, keeps this game closer than a lot of people predict. But I still am going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers here to win the game. I got them winning it by 7 in a fairly low-scoring affair. I do think both teams are going to be able to score some points here in this one, as this is the 3:30 game on Fox. But when I look at both of these sides, I have to give the defensive edge to the Wisconsin Badgers. Even though Washington State is good at creating protection, and I do believe they have the better quarterback, I think Wisconsin's defense is better, going to be able to slow down that offense for Washington State. And that's why I have the Badgers walking away with a 7-point win on Saturday. This is a very interesting game here as well. It's a game that I believe Tennessee won last year, but the Volunteers are going to be looking to pull off a win on the road against the Pittsburgh Panthers in a really exciting game. Both teams walk into this game 1-0 after Tennessee, over here thrashed Ball State this past week. And then Pittsburgh pulled off a really good win against a good West Virginia team. Albeit, Pitt had some shaky moments in the game, but give a lot of credit. They were able to tough it out and pull out the win in that one. However, we got to talk about some things Pitt needs to do to win the game. Tennessee, this defense is not necessarily fantastic, but with how Pitt's offensive line played in that first game, Keaton Slovis' time in the pocket is definitely going to have to decrease. Now, if this offensive line can give Keaton Slovis all the time in the world, great. He should sit in the pocket and be able to throw. That's what Keaton Slovis likes to do. But, I mean, when I was watching that game against West Virginia, really all I could think about was, and all I kept thinking to myself was, how long is Keaton Slovis going to hold the ball? It felt like he was holding the ball for 3 to 5 seconds every single time he was in that backfield, and it ended up leading to West Virginia getting some pressure. I don't know if that was on Keaton Slovis, if that was on the wide receivers, or what was happening. But Keaton Slovis definitely needs to get the ball out of his hands faster in this game, especially since the Volunteers like to run that tempo offense, as we talk about. And both of these teams are good at getting pressure to the quarterbacks, albeit Pitt is a lot better at getting pressure to the quarterbacks than Tennessee, and they're going to need to take advantage of that. Pitt is going to need to be able to get into the backfield, create pressure on Hendon Hooker, make him feel uncomfortable in that pocket. And who wins the run game, right? I think both these teams are going to be pretty dynamic passing the football against their respective defenses. Who wins the run game? Tennessee had a better run game last week as Pitt kind of struggled against the run against West Virginia. How much does that rushing attack how much does that rushing attack improve for the Panthers? And is Tennessee going to be a balanced offensive team? I think Hendon Hooker is going to play really well in this game for Tennessee, and I think the up-tempo offense is just a little too much for Pitt, and I have a lot of questions still about this Pitt team. I want to see how they play, and Pitt, I think, can absolutely win this game. That's just not what I'm going to predict. Tennessee's the 6-point favorite. I got them winning by 7. There should be a 1-0 down there for Pittsburgh as well. But this is the 3:30 game on ABC, and I have Tennessee winning by 7. I think they're going to be able. I think Hendon Hooker's going to have a better game than Keaton Slovis, simply put, and I think Tennessee is going to be able to just outspeed this Pitt team. So I got Tennessee being able to win. The Houston Cougars and Texas Tech Red Raiders face in what's going to be an interesting game here as well, as Houston and Texas Tech, both of these teams have had some promising things go right for them in last week's games, as Houston just falls a spot in the top 25 poll, but stays in the top 25, comes off a really nice win against UTSA, and Texas Tech is coming off a good win of their own against Murray State, where I believe they hung 62 points, if I'm not mistaken, but they had a really good offensive showing with new offensive coordinator. Watch the run game on both sides, because Texas Tech still kind of shaky on the run game, and they're still trying to find some pieces that work for them there. especially with the Houston Cougars. You can say the same thing about the run game on that side of the ball as well, as Houston's really trying to start to find what running back is going to work out for Houston this coming season. And with Tyler Shough now confirmed to be out for the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for this Red Raider team, is Donovan Smith going to be able to be effective for this Red Raider offense, especially because Houston's secondary struggled last week. And Houston's secondary, I believe, gave up two 100-yard performances to UTSA wide receivers last year. And Texas Tech has some good talent on the offensive wide receiver side of things, right? They have good wide receiver talent. It's just, can Donovan Smith be effective in this game? He looked okay at times last year, but for the most part, was not as great as Tyler Shough. So, it's not as great as Tyler Shough was last week, I'll say that. So, we'll see if Donovan Smith can be effective, really test this Houston's secondary, and watch out for the run game on both sides. That's going to be important in this one as well. I just like Houston too much. Again, Texas Tech, with the injury to Tyler Shough, they are the 4-point favorite. I realize that, but I like this Houston team a little too much. I think they did a lot of things right against UTSA. Again, that secondary that struggled last week, I expect improvement from them. If they don't improve, Texas Tech has a great shot to win this game. And this was a Tech team that beat Houston last year. I just do not think that is going to be the case this year. This is one of those times where I'm going off script a little bit on what a lot of other people are predicting. I think a lot of people had Texas Tech winning this game. I do not. I have Houston winning this game by the 4-point spread that Texas Tech does. Houston, I think, is a very talented team. They have a lot of talent in the passing game with Clayton Tune, Nathaniel Dell, even a freshman in Matthew Golden. But I think it's going to test this Texas Tech secondary as well, and I think going to be able to put up enough points and do what it takes to win this game, especially since Houston, they're going to have some defensive improvement from week 1 to week 2, I expect, and nothing against Texas Tech. I think they're going to play a good game. I just don't think Donovan Smith is going to be effective enough to pull out the win here for Texas Tech. I got the Cougars winning on the road by 4. Wow, how underhyped is this game, right? The Iowa State Cyclones and Iowa Hawkeyes are facing off in the Cy-Hawk Trophy battle in a game that not a lot of people are talking about now. This is usually a game where like, ooh, okay, this is going to be an interesting and fun game to watch. Not a lot of people are talking about this one. Iowa State, though, didn't seem to miss a beat on the offensive end, as they're going to look to break a 6-game losing streak against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Not a 6-game losing streak overall. Should have clarified that down below. A 6-game losing streak to these Iowa Hawkeyes, right? But look, the Cyclone offense just did not miss a beat from last season. They played really well last week. Meanwhile, this Iowa defense played really well last weekend as well. So holding South Dakota State, a really good FCS team, to only 3 points. But there is one problem for the Hawkeyes. The offense. Some of their better wide receivers are out. They weren't able to find much on the ground last week. And Spencer Petras was, no other way around it, just downright bad last week. He needs some massive improvement, some massive work, and he may be what holds Iowa back from going to another Big Ten championship. That defense for Iowa is still good, right? That defense for Iowa is going to keep the Hawkeyes in this game. I just don't know that, especially with a lot of those top wide receivers out for Iowa, if they're going to be able to find an offensive rhythm in this game. They're the 3.5-point favorite, but I'm just not confident in what Iowa has on the offensive side of the ball at this point in time this season. I'm a lot more confident in this Iowa State defense, and I think they're going to find enough holes in the Hawkeyes secondary and defensive front to be able, or just they're going to find enough holes in the defense, period, to walk away with a win here, and that's what I have. I got the Cyclones winning this one by 4, breaking their losing streak against the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is an Iowa defense that's really good. I'm not confident in what this offense has to offer. The Cyclones break the 6-game losing streak against the Hawkeyes. How about this for a matchup this week, huh? The Kentucky Wildcats and Florida Gators. Ooh, man, what a matchup this is. And for Florida, this is a massive, massive prove-it game after they were able to beat Utah last week. So who steps up for Kentucky in the running back room with Chris Rodriguez out, right? Chris Rodriguez is suspended for at least the next couple of games, you would think, dealing with some disciplinary issues. And Kentucky struggled against Miami of Ohio last week. And this was a Kentucky team that well, again, found things that worked for him later, in the second half, but really struggled against the Red Hawks in the first half of that game. Anthony Richardson, this is looking like a Heisman campaign. If Florida can win this game, there's a lot of promising things for going on in Gatorland this year with Billy Napier coming in. And look, Anthony Richardson played phenomenally against Utah. He is everything as advertised, if not more. And really, if Florida can have a good season, the way he's playing can have a great chance at running a Heisman campaign. But Will Levis, there's another good quarterback on the other side of the ball in Will Levis. He can tear through the Florida secondary that still has some questions for me coming off that game against Utah. Now, I think the run game is going to be really important here. Florida was able to run for numerous amounts of yards. I think close to 300 yards on that Utah defense that usually is pretty physical and really good. Kentucky struggled to run the football without Chris Rodriguez. So I think the run game is going to play a big part here in this one. And I think it's the reason why Florida comes out with a win here in this game. I got the Gators winning this one by 3. Look, Kentucky is still a good football team, and they have a chance to win 9 games this year once Chris Rodriguez comes back. I am just looking at this game, and I am very worried about what and I would be worried if I were Kentucky, right, on what Florida brings to the table. This is the Gators team that played really well defensively against Utah, albeit there are some questions again with the secondary, as I mentioned, and that run game was splendid for Florida, especially with Anthony Richardson there as well, playing really, really well last week. So I think Florida is going to be able to win this game. If Chris Rodriguez were playing, it might be a different story, but this is the big prove-it game for Florida. I got them winning this game, and it may very well catapult the Gators into the top 10 if they're able to get this one done. But this is a huge game for both teams in the SEC. I'm going with the Gators by 3. The Arizona State Sun Devils and the Oklahoma State Cowboys are facing off in a battle of 1-0 Power 5 teams. The Cowboys' offense looked really good last week against Central Michigan, albeit their defense has some question marks that I still think need to be answered with Jim Knowles no longer that defensive coordinator for Oklahoma State. So the defense, while I thought it played well at times, definitely has some things that it can improve on and work on for this Oklahoma State team. But this offense, it was moving, it was grooving, it was doing a lot of really good things. And Spencer Sanders has really stepped up his play. At the end of the year, we may look back on Sanders as one of the best quarterbacks in the nation this past season. Spencer Sanders has made massive steps in the right direction and massive steps forward to help out this Oklahoma State offense really get going, even after all the talent that they lost. And again, both offenses are dynamic in their own way. Arizona State played really well offensively against Northern Arizona last week, right? But this is a much bigger threat to Arizona State. Oklahoma State is a much more talented team than Northern Arizona, obviously. But which defense steps up and makes the bigger plays? Again, I have some questions about this Cowboys defense coming into this game. Maybe they're going to be able to answer them in this game. And for Arizona State, my apologies. And for Arizona State, look, this is a game here that, well, this is going to be a very telling game for Arizona State. And how they play in this game may very well determine how the rest of the season goes, as they have a lot of transfers on that team and are kind of dealing with some turmoil in that program right now. So if Arizona State can pull this one off, it's going to be a big win for that program. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Oklahoma State is going to come in here and be able to maybe pull away from this one more than some people may think. That's not my score prediction. I have Oklahoma State winning this one by 9. I got them winning 33-24. I do think Arizona's going to make think Arizona State is going to make this game closer than a lot of people think. But Oklahoma State, especially with how improved that offense is, has the capabilities to really pull away from this one, especially if that defense maybe just let Central Michigan get themselves back in the game late there. So if Oklahoma State's defense can show some improvement on the little things, Oklahoma State can win this game handily. I think Arizona State's going to push them a little bit, but Oklahoma State still comes away with the 9-point win. USC and Stanford. What an interesting game this is going to be, right? So for the USC Trojans, this is a totally new look team, right? And while they had some defensive struggles in the first, I'll say quarter against Rice, they were still able to win the game in dynamic offensive fashion. And this offense is just ridiculous for USC. It was ridiculous last week, and the Stanford defense is definitely going to have their hands full. This is a USC offense that, well, let's face it, right? When Clay Helton tried to implement this dynamic passing offense at USC over the past couple of seasons, it just didn't really work. It's what led to him getting fired, including a loss to this Stanford team last season that was pretty embarrassing for USC. But Lincoln Riley comes in here, and this passing attack looks great. Caleb Williams looks great. A lot of the transfers look great. This is a USC team that I'm really confident offensively in. I still have some questions about this defense, as I think Tanner McKee is going to be able to have a pretty solid day on this USC defense. I think Tanner McKee, couple that with the fact that, Stanford's got some good weapons on that side of the ball. They really do. I think Stanford's going to be able to put up some points in this one, as USC's defense still working through some stuff. But turnovers are going to be the big factor in this game. Tanner McKee is not going to turn the football over. He's not that kind of quarterback. And USC, I believe, had, 2 or 3 pick sixes last week against Rice. Again, still some things that I want to see worked on for that defense for USC. But all in all, it looks a lot better than it has in previous years. I think USC is going to walk into this one. They are the 8.5-point favorite. I think they're going to walk into this one and win fairly comfortably. I got this one as an 11-point victory for USC, avenging that loss to Stanford from last year. This is the 7:30, the primetime game on ABC. I do expect USC to come in here, be able to win this game, and win it fairly handedly. I think Stanford's going to have their good moments, be able to push USC slightly, but I do like the Trojans to pull away with the win here in this game. Ooh, how about this for a Week 1 matchup? I think this has the potential to be the best game that we're going to see in Week 1. BYU, the 21st ranked team in the nation, opens up as a 3-point favorite against the reigning Big 12 champion Baylor Bears in a future Big 12 matchup. Yeah, BYU is joining the conference next year, so we'll get a little preview on what this matchup may look like in the Big 12 conference. Let's start with the quarterbacks, right? Blake Shapen looked really good last year in the Big 12 championship game, and he looked good in the first half against Albany. I believe that's all he played. Threw for a couple touchdowns, over 200 yards, looked phenomenal. If he would have kept playing, probably could have thrown for 400 or 500 yards. I mean, Blake Shapen, really, really good stuff I've seen from him during his time at Baylor. And Jaron Hall. You know the story with him at BYU. He's a really good quarterback there as well. He tore up South Florida's defense last week as well, but he may end up being without some of he may end up being without some of his wide receivers, as I believe Puka Nacua is questionable for this game, but all in all, BYU still got a lot of talent on the outside there at the wide receiver position. Now, both teams are still trying to find that premier running back. Baylor replacing their top 3 rushers from last year and still trying to find a guy to really get things going. BYU may have already found it in Christopher Brooks, the transfer from Cal after trying to replace Tyler Algier. He looked good against South Florida in that game. But we'll see how good he looks here in this one, right? If he can continue that performance from last week, Christopher Brooks definitely going to end up being that premier back for BYU. But if he maybe struggles against this Baylor defense that, yes, is replacing a lot, but still I think is going to be good in the run game, this could definitely be a game where but both these teams are really going to find out a lot about their running backs, especially with how good their respective defenses are. And speaking of the defense, which one plays better? Both these offenses we know are going to score points. BYU has pretty much everyone coming back on the defensive side, and Baylor is replacing a lot on defense, but they still look to be a ferocious group, and maybe as, if not even more ferocious than they were last year. So this is a game where I really could see this one diving either way. But I got BYU winning this one narrowly. This is going to be a phenomenal game to watch all the way through. This is a late game, 10:15 on ESPN. If you're planning on staying up late, if you're willing to stay up, highly recommend that you go watch this game. I think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup we're going to see here. I do have BYU escaping with this game by 1. I think with all they have coming back, I think they're going to be the better team on Saturday night in Provo, Utah, and I think that's the big key as well. The game is in Provo. The game was in Waco last year. Game in Provo this year. I think BYU able to get this one done, albeit this is going to be a tough and hard-fought affair. But the Cougars come out on top in this one. The Oregon State Beavers and Fresno State Bulldogs are playing in another late-night game this weekend as Oregon State thrashed the Boise State last week, took advantage of, I believe, 4 Bronco turnovers. But this is a more explosive, more dynamic Fresno State offense. And while they didn't necessarily show that all that well against Cal Poly, again, it was the game against Cal Poly. But Fresno State, this is still a team that I really like coming into this year, right? Fresno State, this is definitely a really good team, and this offense is explosive. And Jake Haener just does not turn the football over. It is plain that simple. So Fresno State does not turn the football over, and Oregon State forced a lot of turnovers against Boise State, but albeit a lot of that to the fault of Hank Bachmeier and that Boise State defense, right? But speaking of turnovers, right, they're going to play devil's advocate in this game because Oregon State turned the ball over 3 times last week against Boise State, something that they just can't do against Fresno State. This is a more dynamic, more explosive offense, and they're going to be able to make you pay if you turn the football over. So Oregon State, if they want to win this game, yes, they are the 1-point favorite, but they got to be able to limit their own turnovers. Jake Haener's not a quarterback that's going to turn the football over, so Oregon State is going to have to hold on to the ball and force turnovers in this game as well, instead of relying on giveaways as they did with Boise State last week. Watch the battle on the line of scrimmage. Both these offensive and defensive lines are going to be battling out all game long. Whichever team is able to get the upper hand on the other team's lines will also have a good shot to win this game. But turnovers are the big story. And as I've talked about, Jake Haener does not turn the football over, and it's what is leading me to pick Fresno State to win this game. I got them winning this one by 4. I think Oregon State keeps this one close. I think Oregon State is going to battle, but just too much talent for Fresno State, too much offensive explosiveness, and I got the Fresno State Bulldogs walking away with this one. This is another late game. Highly recommend you stay up to watch this one as well, but Fresno State I have pulling out the win. And then the final game we're talking about here, the latest game to kick off. This is another interesting one. The Mississippi State Bulldogs and the Arizona Wildcats. The Bulldogs passing game is going to test this Arizona secondary, right? This is an Arizona secondary that just didn't get tested as much as it probably should have against the San Diego State Aztecs, a game that Arizona State, in my opinion, surprisingly able to win and, again, take advantage of a lackluster performance from the Aztec defense. But Arizona, this is a team that is much improved from last year, and I think they're going to battle in this game. But, I mean, that secondary is just not going to face a passing attack like Mississippi State. That very well could be this over here, could be the best passing attack in all of college football. With Will Rogers coming back, they have good weapons out there on the wide receiver end. Mississippi State is going to be a really good team coming into this year. They started off with a win against Memphis, and now we're looking for a Power 5 win on the road. But again, as I've talked about, Arizona's much improved, and Jaden DeLora and company looked great. They looked dynamic. They were balanced, and something we just haven't seen from Arizona within the past couple of seasons. So really promising stuff from Arizona this past game. I want to see if they can handle what's going to be, I think, a better defensive performance from Mississippi State. They, at the end of the day, might not be the better defense in San Diego State, but Mississippi State, I think, is going to provide a better challenge for Arizona. But the Wildcats are going to have the home crowd behind them, and which defense is able to slow down the other's respective attack, right? Arizona is a very balanced attack, but they also love to throw the football, and Jaden DeLora looked really good, and that's pretty much all Mississippi State does, is throw the football. They have a very dynamic passing attack. So defenses are going to play a big role here. I think Arizona's going to keep this game close. They're going to keep this game competitive, but I trust Mississippi State more, and I think they have the more dynamic passing attack, and I think it's what's going to be able to allow them to win this game. This is an 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time kickoff. I highly recommend, if you are willing to stay up, watch the past 3 games that I talked about, because they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. This one on Fox Sports 1, the late night Pac-12 After Dark, and I got the Bulldogs winning this game by 5. I trust that passing attack more in Arizona. while they are a much improved team this year, could be a sneaky one to get into a bowl game this year. I just like what Mississippi State has this year, and I got them winning this game by 5. So there you have it, my predictions for all the matchups that we're going to see in week 2. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Again, anything like that does help support my channel. You guys have been awesome in the support you've shown over the past couple of months. Enjoy your week 2. I will try to post a news video tomorrow. I've been very busy this week. Finally found time to sit down and record this, but I'll try to get that news video out either late tonight or early tomorrow morning for you guys. So in the meantime, remember, play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.